The people of Israel were in the land of Egypt for about 430 years, which was almost 4 generations after the time of Joseph. By this time, they had forgotten the personal knowledge of who the God of Israel was and had only heard from Jacob or Joseph. So, before God could rescue them and take them to their promised land Canaan, God wanted to reveal Himself to His people as a father would want to reveal Himself to his child. The 10 plagues of Egypt were not mere random acts, rather a well-orchestrated set of events targeting the 10 gods of Egypt. The people of Israel were quite familiar with the gods of Egypt where they lived for nearly 430 years. So God wanted to make His people understand that He is the great I Am and there is no God beside Him. Nile was considered as a gift of gods also associated with an Egyptian god named Api. They equated the river Nile with life itself and organized their daily lives according to the highs and lows of the level of water. Eketh was a frog goddess of fertility. Geb was an Egyptian god over the dust of the earth. Kebri was an Egyptian god who had the face of a fly. Hathor was an Egyptian god whose principal animal was a cow. Isis was an Egyptian goddess of health and peace, but the Egyptians had disease which was incurable, causing unrest. Nut was an Egyptian goddess of the sky, but couldn't control the hail fire falling on the Egyptians. Seth was an Egyptian god of storms and disorder. The Bible says the east wind blew day and night and brought locusts. Seth, the Egyptian god of storms, couldn't stop the winds which brought the locusts, which eventually caused a lot of disorder. Ra was the sun god, but couldn't provide sunlight to the Egyptians. Pharaoh was worshipped by the Egyptians and was considered to be the greatest Egyptian god of all. Through these events, God was trying to make His children understand that He is Lord over all. So then, why was God angry with Moses for striking the rock? Listen carefully. The people of Israel had only seen God's power manifest through the rod of Moses. Whether it was the 10 plagues, or the splitting of the Red Sea, or even bringing water from the rock the first time, it was always through the rod of Moses. It got so much to a point where they started putting their trust on the rod of Moses instead of God Himself. So in Numbers chapter 20 verses 7 to 8, the Lord said to Moses, "Take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to the rock before their eyes, and it would pour out its water. You would bring water out of the rock for the community so they and their livestock can drink." God could have simply said, "Go speak to the rock," and water would have come. But He was very specific and said, "Take the staff." God's heart here was longing to showcase Himself to His beloved children. But Moses was so used to the rod that he used the rod to strike than simply speak. It was not just Moses' lack of trust in God which hurt God, but rather the utter disappointment of not being able to express Himself to His chosen people. He wanted to make the children of Israel understand that He was much more than just the rod of Moses. The rod of Moses is a form of God's power, but the Word was God Himself. John 1:1. Sometimes we read the Bible and think it was not fair for God to be upset with Moses, but this incident makes more sense when you understand the heart of God, which was longing to make Himself known to His children in a personal way.